Hello?
Hello?
Hello? Oh, hey, Rob. How's it
What's going on
going?
there, fella?
It's been a while.
Great.
I'm just
Yeah,
in
what
this.
you doing?
I'm just in this desert. I
Huh.
don't know how I ended up
Well,
here.
uh, dude, it's been a minute. What's going on?
It's been a while.
What's happening?
Yeah, things are going good. Things are okay. I'm just watching a lot of horrible movies and then rewatching things that I love constantly on repeat
Dude.
because the things that are coming out now are kind of garbage. Wouldn't you agree?
I like to like things, so I watch a lot of things that I think people are a little hard on, but it doesn't also mean that I am also not hard on them from time to time. But
Let's keep saying hard
I
on
do.
throughout this whole show.
I'm going to say it as many times as I can possibly say it. You and I used to do reviews on my
On a
show,
place,
and
we'll say a place.
on a place with a thing. We used to do reviews, and on those reviews, you and I did a movie called Fuzz Bucket,
Oh fuck! It
and I think
continuously still the worst movie I have ever seen in my life. Nothing will
see,
beat it.
I thought you would appreciate the worst movie I could possibly find. That's why I went and got it because I thought you would like the worst movie I could possibly find, and that was Fuzz Bucket. Um, so I don't know. That's kind of the bar I think we've set for like a bad movie here. You and I also did Prince of Persia, and here's the thing
Not
about that
terrible.
is that movie, Lone Ranger, Oz Great and Powerful, John Carter, and this one, Tomorrowland, were all kind of the same era of, on paper, they should have been blockbusters. In reality, some of them were just in box office embarrassments. And I don't know sometimes what makes the difference because some of these movies that were out there were like, they should have been great. I remember them rolling them out at D23 and people going nuts over John Carter. And it's like, yeah, it's going to be great. Nobody went and saw it.
Well, let's start with just the overall premise. Hi everyone, welcome to Streaming Nowhere. I'm Tyler from Screenhole, and I'm joined today by my guest, Rob. I'm backwards, by the way. My shirt is not backwards. This is just the camera setup we have. I'm joined today by Rob. Rob, how's it going?
Am I backwards too? I didn't notice that.
No,
I guess
you're
I am.
fine. Only I'm backwards because I'm viewing my
Okay.
own window.
Well, I'm using a different camera so you get a wider angle of all the junk that I have. So that's nice. I got my Lorcana collection of crap over here and
You and
all
Ben
my
and Lorcana, I swear.
dude. I'm a collector, and so it's a problem for me with Lorcana. I mean, I'm into board games like the Ticket to Ride, pedestrian stuff, Wingspan, but like I'm all about the collecting, and so that's why Lorcana's a problem for me. So I need a 12-step program.
Oh, do you like the 3D glasses that I stole from my theme parks? Like I have
I
collectible shit too.
Yeah, no, I do that too. I will take a souvenir of each individual type of glasses, like the Spider-Man ones from Web Slingers in California. I have those, or I may. I mean, is this admissible in court? I may have those. I may or may not. I don't know how much trouble I can get into on that.
These ones are
I don't
not
know.
from Disney, although a cast member gave me glasses to keep because of Kingdom Keepers. That's a story for another day. But let's talk about Tomorrowland since we brought it up. We are going to be talking about
You know what?
Tomorrowland now, which is the Disney movie from 2015. And
Yeah.
you suggested this movie and almost the title for this show because, as you pointed out, it's not on Disney Plus.
No, it's not. You've done a lot of stuff that's not on Disney Plus. Tower of Terror. I would love to talk about that. It's not on Disney Plus. I know you guys kind of reamed that one at some point or watched it,
Yeah,
but
we watched the
like, there's
whole
too
thing.
much. Yeah, like there's too much stuff that's not on Disney Plus. Like the Tower of Terror, Tomorrowland. There's a lot of TV shows. Muppets Tonight, House of Mouse is not on there.
I
Yeah,
think
there's
there's
just
a
a
show
lot of
that had
stuff.
come out recently that's not on there. Have you heard of Willow?
Too soon, man. It's too soon. I didn't get to
This
watch it before it went away.
this is weird. This is a problem. I mean, we know now, we could talk about this at the end, but there's a problem with streaming sites that any of these sites could just decide the next day to take something off that they own, that they have the rights to, that they takes up 5 gigabytes of space on a server somewhere. It's baffling to me that they just don't have that stuff up there. I will say, Tomorrowland is on Disney Plus in Canada and includes the deleted scenes as under the extras tab. I have it on YouTube because when I bought the Blu-ray, which I don't own anymore because I'm like, I'm never going to watch this movie again. When I got it came with a free digital copy, and it wasn't through like a weird site where you can only watch it on like moviesanywhere.com or whatever. It just lets me have it on my YouTube account. But they could also just decide one day to take it off of their YouTube. They could just decide, no, we don't want this available anymore. And then the digital copy I have just means nothing. It's insane.
Yeah, no, that is weird. I used to have like a ton of DVDs behind me before I moved rooms, but like I have probably 1,000 DVDs, and I should get rid of the majority of them. But there are still some things that aren't available on streaming services that I'm like, Back to the Future. I don't know where I would find that, except I can go to my shelf and find it there. So there are movies that mean a lot to me that I would own. I think I actually own a copy of Tomorrowland, and I think I took the digital copy like you did, put it into Vudu, and that's where I watch it, is on Vudu. So probably could do it on YouTube too.
It's gone to the point where I don't know if you've heard about the cartoon Infinity Train. It was on Cartoon Network, I believe, and they just in some kind of merger, they just took that whole show down. It's not on streaming. It's not available to buy. It's not on TV anymore. And the creator of the show is like, pirate my show, because that is the only way you can watch that show anymore. Unless you happen to own some kind of physical copy or you downloaded it when a digital version was available, it's just not available. And it's to the point where there are like, let me say, I'm an artist. I make comics and I distribute them DRM free. You could buy it from my website. You get a PDF and you could do whatever you want with that PDF from there. But there might come a time when my website will just be shut down or taken offline, and you will have no way of getting that stuff anymore. A website where I currently have everything hosted, that website could just go down. Like Amazon Web Services could just decide that they're done and all that stuff isn't available. The idea that in the future people should just have to pirate stuff to get it is nuts. To the point that when like I recently rented a filmed version of a stage show, and I'm like, I know it's horrible, but should I screen record this? Because there's every chance that this will vanish off the face of the earth within a year. And
Right.
and no one will ever see it again. No one will ever hear it. And there's stage shows like that are never filmed, musicals, plays, whatever, that are never filmed, and they just vanish forever and no one will ever get to see it. It's like, things should be recorded and logged. That's what Internet Archive is for. That's why the Super Mario Brothers movie from 1986 or whatever is on the Internet Archive, because there's no DVDs of it anywhere. No one's manufacturing this, but people should see it. There's no reason people should be able to watch stuff like that.
You mentioned plays. You know what I would throw into there too is Spider-Man: Turn Off the Dark. I got to see that in person. I would love to then share that experience later with somebody, but it doesn't exist anywhere anymore. It's not like it's touring or anything. It's too dangerous. I would love to have like some kind of a copy of that I could go back to, because I can barely remember it at this point. It was like, I don't know, 15 years ago, and maybe even longer. So I get it. What you should do is take all of your stuff and just make NFTs out of it and just sell them.
That word is banned now. Nobody talk about. Nobody say NFTs. I'm gonna block NFTs in the chat right now.
Okay,
we watched a lot of riffing stuff. We're like, Tarzan Rocks, Finding Nemo the musical. Like, those things aren't like they're recorded, I assume, by like when they're doing rehearsals or like dress rehearsals or something. We had when we both went to an event where a Disney Imagineer named Ron Logan was sharing footage of what was it called? Dick Tracy Diamond Double Cross from Hollywood Studios. And he has like a pro shot version that was like, it was mounted, it was a camera mounted at the back of the stage, and they filmed it for like rehearsal use. And
Yeah.
he has that file that just exists, like a pretty high quality source audio version of that. Even theme parks now were like these rides that have like a video file associated with it, just these rides get removed and demolished or whatever. What's it called? Universal Studios, Poseidon's Fury. Someone has the video files of the original and the new one, and that ride is just gone now. And who knows if anyone will ever see that again. But someone has that source footage. They got to. And the source audio, the soundtrack, stuff that never gets released. It's just ridiculous that it costs probably no money just to upload it to a site and make it available for people. And I mean, now we're seeing it more than ever with Coyote versus Acme. People are now saying on the, like, I don't know if do you know about that?
Oh. I know, I'm familiar with the Warner Brothers Looney Tunes where the Coyote and Acme exist.
This is a movie that was directed by the guy who did Guardians of the Galaxy. Written and directed by
James Gunn.
James Gunn. James Gunn wrote and directed this movie about the Coyote suing Acme for everything that's ever happened to him. It was like
Fun.
live action with 2D animated characters. Will Forte plays like his lawyer or something. Like, they had a great cast. It's like Rocky and Bullwinkle when that live action movie a little bit. And they just decide in that Warner Brothers Discovery merger, they just decided this movie's done. It's finished, soundtrack recorded, edited, fully finished movie. Let's just not release it. We're going to shelve it for a tax write-off. And everyone on the internet was like, this is fucking insane. It should be illegal to do shit like that. And so now, because of a backlash on the internet, Warner Brothers was like, okay, we'll do some screenings for producers and like people who have money if they want to pick it up for distribution. And a lot of famous actors got a chance to see it because of that. And these people came out of this movie like, this is a fucking masterpiece. Like, people need to see this movie. The amount of time and effort, and like, this movie is a laugh a second. And all these famous actors were tweeting about it. They're like, for the love of God, somebody please pick up this movie. And then the word just came out this morning that Warner Brothers said Netflix, Amazon, and I think maybe like Hulu or something, Warner Brothers passed on all their offers. Distributors wanted the movie, and Warner Brothers went, it's not enough money. You're bankrupt. Take anything you can get, Warner Brothers. What the fuck? And now now that it's changed. Now the whole fan thing is somebody who has this movie. If you're an editor and you have a copy, please throw it up on the internet illegally. We all want to see it, and it's clear Warner Brothers doesn't give a shit. So that might be the next thing that happens, is someone is going to release this movie illegally from like a pirated copy in high quality, and once that goes online, everyone is going to download it, and everyone's going to be able to pass it around for eternity. And Warner Brothers is not going to be able to do anything about that. And honestly, I look forward to that.
Speaking of Warner Brothers, they also shelved Batgirl. Because Batgirl was a DC movie that was supposed to come out, and it was all done, like you said, edited, the whole deal, and they just shelved it and said this isn't coming out because it's not going to be part of James Gunn's new DC universe. But neither have like several of the movies been part of that universe, so it seems ridiculous that they would. Seems like Warner Brothers is clearly displayed why they're in trouble. These are dumb moves with great IP. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane, honestly.
Let me ask you a question about this movie we're supposed to be talking about.
Yeah, let's talk about a movie.
All right, let me ask you a question about it though. Had you seen it? But I recommended it to you because I thought we would talk about it because it's not on Disney Plus, and it's a movie that I wanted to talk about because I think, again, on paper it looks like it should have been a huge hit. Had you seen it before you sat down yesterday to watch it?
I followed the ARG on Inside the Magic back when I followed that website. So I not only was I interested in this movie, I fully was like following every single detail of it. If you don't know,
Okay.
the ARG is an alternate reality game. They brought what's his name, Damon Lindelof and Brad Bird. They brought out
Brad
this
Bird.
box at D23, and they're like, this is some stuff that
Yes,
we uncovered from the Walt Disney archives. And it
I
was
was
like this
there.
weird. Oh, okay, so you know more
I
about it
was
than I
there.
do.
Yeah, it was, but it was very strange. It was like, what was I supposed to take from that? Because it wasn't enough to be like make me like really curious about it, but at the same time, they didn't. I don't know. I didn't. I know what you're talking about, but I thought that that presentation. Did you like that? Because I felt like it left me
It
going.
was interesting.
I don't know. I don't know any more about this movie now than I did before, and I think that's kind of the heart of the problem of this movie is that it's wrapped up in so many enigmas that like by the time you get to the payoff, they didn't give you the payoff they needed to give you because
Let
of
me see
all
if
of
I
the
can.
mystery the entire time.
Let me see if I could bring up a quick clip of this from
Okay,
D23.
we don't talk
Uh,
about Bruno. Is that correct?
Let me try and transition here, see if this works. But yeah, so on the D23 floor, there was a booth, and it wasn't like actually related to anything. It was like it had some title of, here it is, Cartography of Disney, and it was like maps and like hidden stuff at Disney. And if you talked to a guy there, he was an actor playing a character, and he would show you he would give you like a circle on a map to go to Disneyland across the street and go look at something. And everyone else got different circles, and they realized that if they went to a place that pinpointed an X on the map, they'd find a cast member that they could talk to, and they would tell them about Plus Ultra and all this stuff. So it was a pretty interesting premise. I love escape rooms, so I like this kind of weird follow a clue shit. I'll transition back because they showed some of
I
the
by the
cool
way,
stuff
I have
there.
this Tomorrowland T-shirt which I almost couldn't find, and then I was like, if there was one time in my life to wear it, it's now.
Yes, this is the perfect opportunity. I have a Tomorrowland pin somewhere in my desk drawer I haven't looked at. But yeah,
Did it transport you?
this thing, like, if you folded it, work together to align the symbols of tomorrow at, and then go to the park. And so people were following all these clues and stuff, and it was interesting. In the end, they went to like the Main Street Theater, which was closed off, and they watched this secret movie about Plus Ultra. This was before the movie trailer came out, before the movie was called Tomorrowland. No one knew what was happening. And I'm just going to fast forward here.
Right.
At the very end, this thing rose out of the ground, and everybody got a Tomorrowland pin. And no one knew what this was, and it was intriguing as hell.
Yeah.
It was really interesting. But when we come to
Think-
like the movie, the most interesting thing about the movie is that Plus Ultra lore. And so I was excited about the movie. I saw the movie in theaters,
And
and I remember really liking it. This was in 2015, so Tom and I were already together. I think we saw it together, and Tom's opinion was that was bad. He was like, the message of this movie is so freaking garbled. I don't like the main character. I don't like George Clooney flirting with this little girl, which we'll give context to very soon. It was like, and it was like the whole idea and message was just lost at the end of the movie. Speaking of
yeah.
Lost, Damon
Dun,
Lindelof,
dun,
who
dun.
wrote Lost, wrote this movie, and you can tell.
Because it tracks a little bit of the whole
Interesting
mystery
premise.
without the
Yeah.
payoff.
Interesting premise, interesting mystery, a cool backstory. Where does it go? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, again, I thought on paper when it's like, okay, it's Tomorrowland. I love Disney. I love Disney parks. Tomorrowland is great. I don't know what that's going to be, but I'm excited about it. And then on top of that, the idea of, George Clooney starring in a Disney movie with Hugh Laurie sounded interesting and exciting. I was really looking forward to it. I saw it, and again, I like to like things. So by the time I saw it and watched it, I liked it, but I just felt like it could have been better. But I do think a lot of people did not come to the theater to see this because maybe they were too vague about what it was. They were too, heady about like this high concept, and so therefore people didn't know what they were spending their money on, so they just didn't come. Because I know at the box office it was a huge disaster.
Yeah. Well, talking about box office disasters, like you said before, John Carter of Mars, Tron Legacy, these are all sci-fi films. And for a while, sci-fi was like you there it's such a specific audience. Like, if it's not a general enough thing or an IP people know, there's so much shit you have to explain to people in these sci-fi movies. Like, it's already ridiculous that Star Wars starts with Palpatine is back somehow. Also, this thing, there's a new guy. His name's General Pride. Don't think about it too much. Like, it's nuts that that movie even starts with all this backstory you're just supposed to know. And I hate when I watch old movies and a movie's like, in the beginning there was Korvax and he was the god of the three. I'm like, oh god. So with a sci-fi movie like this, like, most of this movie is characters asking about what the fuck Tomorrowland is as a place and people trying to
Right.
explain it to them, and also you, the audience.
But even after you've watched this, Tyler, what is Tomorrowland?
What
Is
is
it
the
in another
place
dimension?
Tomorrowland?
Is it another dimension? Is it the future? Is it like
From
but
from what I
but again,
gather, it's like a parallel world. Oh, you didn't actually want me to answer that, did you?
no, you can explain it to me, but I'm just
Okay.
saying like they assume a lot in this. They don't make it crystal clear where Tomorrowland is because by the name Tomorrow, it seems like it should be the future. But yet it
Yeah.
seems like when they're traveling back to the Earth and they're like, "Where are we going?" and he says, "Well, it's sort of another dimension," but they're not really clear about what that is.
Yeah. I think it is a like parallel dimension because they're like, is that a portal to Earth? He's like, no, it's a bridgeway, which means it's some kind of place connected to Earth in some way. You know, we got a field of wheat, which I don't know if that's just part of the commercial they made, which is clearly a fake version of that world they built, but it's Earth-like. You know, Governor Nix, played by Hugh Laurie, doesn't look like an alien. He looks like a person. Is he a person? Is he from Earth? Is he from this parallel world? Everyone else in the parallel world is a robot. Is he a robot? Like, none of this shit is answered. And at the end,
Well,
I
I know.
still don't know.
Yeah, I don't think he's a robot because I thought that too when the thing crashes down on him at the end and he's trapped. I thought maybe that was. But the funny thing
Yeah, me
to
too.
tie this back into Disney is the movie starts out we're going to the 1964 World's Fair where Walt Disney
Yes.
premiered. It's a small world and the Skyway and the Magic Skyway and the Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln and the Carousel of Progress. So when he's getting off the bus and we hear the Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow, I'm like, oh, like right in the beginning, I'm going like, this is going to be so cool that we're going to be talking about like Disney from here on out, and yet it doesn't really do that. So we hear the Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow. Then he
Yeah.
comes up to this apparently this inventors like contest that
Yes.
he's going to
He's
enter.
gonna win
And when he does,
$50.
he's going to win $50. So he goes up to this inventors contest, and I thought to myself, I know a little bit about the 1964 World's Fair, but I never heard of an inventors like you know competition. So I was like, I don't know if that's a thing or not. And then we see them cut to like the outside, and there's like characters, and I'm like, okay, more Disney. Like there's the big bad wolf, and
Yeah.
there's like
We see
the
him
March
crawling
Hare, and I'm
into It's a Small World. Disney, the
right.
original version that was at the World's Fair. Which,
Right, but this one was clearly at Disneyland that they filmed this because all the cement pathways and stuff.
well, really quick, the inside of this Inventor Symposium was filmed in Carousel of Progress at Walt Disney World. So they redecorated one of like the load or unload rooms to be this. All the seating that you can see in the thing, like this is the regular Carousel of Progress seats. Everything's just decorated. My question is why? Other than the fact that we as fans of the theme parks can go like, that's so cool. They filmed at Disney. They filmed at like the Walt Disney's Carousel of Progress ride. It doesn't add anything. It's not like young George Clooney goes on Carousel of Progress or something. It's just an Easter egg for fans. They didn't need to go out of their way to fly to Florida just to film that one scene and close off a ride for a whole couple weeks or however long it took.
Yeah, and that attraction existed at Disneyland before, so it would have been what is now Star Wars Launch Bay would have been the building, and so you would think that if they needed to do it, they would have just set it up there.
Yes.
Because the building's still round, but obviously the seats aren't there and all that other mess. But yeah, so like there are those Disney throws. But by the way, the characters when they have the big bad wolf and the you can see them.
The white
I
rabbit,
think the March Hare is like there. The White Rabbit. Sorry. So you see the White Rabbit right there. Those are the modern day, and there's the Peter Pan hat and all that. But
yeah, that is weird that they didn't
the modern looking ones and not the old looking ones. Not the old looking. Yeah. Well,
I do
think
like
they
that they used again, like they used the Walt Disney stuff from the actual World's Fair as part of the story, which I thought was interesting. It's a nice touch that they filmed at the actual It's a Small World, and then just I guess like visual effects added in all the World's Fair crap in the background, and then we end up in what Tomorrowland is, and it's just this gray, ugly area until he falls almost to his death, and then we very briefly see Tomorrowland. And the thing is, the movie does start with this like long intro where I like the way it starts. I don't like that it starts with this narration from George Clooney. I like that we start with him as a kid seeing it, and then we were like, oh no, but now this is the world now and it sucks or whatever. It's not like the World's Fair. But throughout the whole movie, we only get these brief glimpses of the place Tomorrowland. Which, by the way, they don't even call it that in the movie. There's a scene where Keegan-Michael Key is supposed to explain to Casey it's called Tomorrowland. They never do that. And then later, they're just like, this is Tomorrowland. And it's like, oh, that's the name of the movie. Oh, they finally said it.
Yeah, they finally said it when Casey gets to Tomorrowland and they meet up with David. What's his last name?
Governor Nix.
Nix. Doesn't start with a V. It starts with an N. Yeah. So when they meet Nix, that's when the Tomorrowland thing comes up for the first and only time, as far as I know. Michael Giacchino from does the score for this. He's actually the Small World operator in this, which I thought was funny.
Oh.
And then fun. Judy Greer's voice is in this, and you could tell it's Judy Greer. And I thought, wow, that's really weird that they would use her so little.
I know exactly. It's the video of Casey pointing out the stars at the beginning of the movie. I think she was going to be in the movie more, and then she got cut. But yeah, that's weird that they used her.
Yeah, but the rest of the cast, like Tim McGraw, that seemed like a weird pull for her dad, and I guess Tim McGraw was trying to get into acting a little bit more. And Keegan-Michael Key and Catherine Hahn in the collectible shop, which, by the way, I want to talk about when
Can we talk about how her little brother is a PSP the year after PSP stopped being sold?
I still have a PSP. I'm just throwing that out there.
That's fair.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Maybe it took them longer to make the movie. Who knows?
My problem is this scene at the school where we're kind of introduced to Casey's character and how she's like optimistic about the future, etc. This scene is all the teachers saying, here's the world. The world is awful and everyone's going to die and self-assured destruction. And Casey's like, but what are we trying to do to fix it? And the teachers are like, I don't know. Have you ever seen The Good Place, the TV show?
Yes, I have.
On Earth, when we see flashbacks, almost everyone is a horrible person. It's not just our main four. and the problems that they have, but like everyone is mean and rude and horrible people outside of this. And that's the kind of point they're trying to make in that TV show, is that like it's just harder to be a human, it's harder to be a nice person, etc. This movie is making it look like all these teachers don't know how to teach properly. Or like the one time a student like asks them a question, actually they're like detention or something. Like they're making the world look awful, and that like Casey is the only good person in it. And I'm like, I don't know if that's exactly the way the world works. I understand that's what you're trying to force in your message of the movie, that Casey is special because she's so optimistic. It's just weird. Like it just misses it for me.
Well, there's a heavy-handed message in this one for the whole like environmental change, and it's very, very heavy-handed, and I think that sets it up for the, in Act 3 where they make the big speech about, well, you people didn't want to do anything to save your world, and it's easy enough for you to just let it go, so you're just too lazy, you're just gonna let it die, and even if we sent you back and changed things, you still wouldn't save it. And so, again, very heavy-handed environmental message that I think they set up with the classroom thing in the beginning, that, like you said, she's the only one that cares. The teachers are like, I don't know. I have no idea how to save this. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
They were the deleted scene shows that she was going to be like not the kind of like, wait, I have a question. Oh, why aren't we so mean? She was just going to be like she also had just given up. Which they were like, yeah, no, she's such an unlikable character at the beginning of this movie then. But I think they went too far in the opposite direction, where she's too eager and too like, I'm gonna go. Like there's a moment where before they get in like the weird satellite thing that takes them to Paris, the Athena is like, give me the Edison tube, I'll go by myself. And we don't know what the Edison tube is. She doesn't know what the Edison tube is. And then right afterwards, Casey's like, fine, then I'll go with Athena. Give me the Edison tube. And it's like, you don't even know. You're acting like you know this thing. Like, I don't know how to word it. She should be like, I don't know what, give me the Edison tube or whatever that thing is. And he could have been like, you don't know what I'm talking about. She's like, I'll figure it out. Like, there could have been a line there, but there wasn't. Like, they missed the moments to explain extra stuff. Like, remember when they get in the satellite thing, and he's like, take this, and she's like, what is it? He's like, powder. And I'm like, what? Are they not going to explain what that was? And they don't. It's like, what was that stuff? He says,
it's a roofie. It's a roofie. Don't worry about it. Just take it.
If you pause, it's called like fizzy, and he says you're going to lose all your blood sugar in like a split second, and I just assumed it was like pixie sticks or something, like fun dip. Yeah. Like, I assumed it was that, but why did he just say, why couldn't he say it's sugar? Like, it's a sugar treat. Eat it. He's just like, powder.
Maybe
it's like,
well, I mean, she loses all her blood sugar, and when she shows up, they have these Cokes in the fridge, one for him and one for her. And then as Athena's handing it to him, she intercepts the second one and drinks that one as well. And I thought, oh, well, okay, I guess he's just going to die? Because she took both of them, because she just decided she was the one that needed the survival over him. I don't know. I think a lot of this is all over the place. But let's go back to what was it called? The name of the name of the collectible shop.
Oh,
no,
yeah.
The name of the collectible shop. It was called Blast from the Past comic.
Can we start with her experience in Tomorrowland, the commercial, because that comes right before that scene.
Yeah.
In this, we have like all of these little Easter eggs and references. We see what Tomorrowland looks like. It's this one uninterrupted 3D animated shot. We got Space Mountain in the background. There's a lot of
the only thing I recognized. Did you recognize anything other than Space Mountain? That's the only thing I recognized. We could guess that this is the abandoned Tomorrowland People Mover track from Disneyland. She's under.
Well, these cars are actual things. I think they use them at like Amazon factories or whatever. This is clearly meant to be like a People Mover station type thing. There's a lot of twins in these shots, and I think that's because she's in a computer simulation commercial, as they say before.
Oh
But
yeah.
yeah, like this scene is cool, but it's all fake. The reality they're showing here and that Casey is seeing is all fake because we see Tomorrowland later and it's disgusting and unfinished. It's a lot like Epcot. Uh, the monitor, the big ball they go in, has a spaceship Earth triangle pattern on the outside, which I thought was funny
Yeah.
that they blow that up.
I don't know. I
But
felt like it should have been more like Tomorrowland if we're calling it Tomorrowland. I know some things like the Country Bear movie that you and I reviewed. I they should have kept closer to the Country Bears than they did because they're the things they changed didn't help it. And I think the same thing here is that the Tomorrowland that they showed to me should have been like familiar to us. And obviously, yes, Space Mountain's in the background, but nothing else seemed familiar to me. But I guess the idea was this is supposed to be a real place that exists, maybe more like a an Epcot than actually Tomorrowland.
there is a
I don't know.
deleted scene in the Blast from the Past shop where Keegan Michael Key says they called it Tomorrowland, and she goes, like the Disney park? And he's like, that
Oh,
was just a cover for this place if people were to ever talk about it. But Walt Disney was one of the Plus Ultra members. He was one of the first, and
gotcha.
they gesture to a picture of Walt Disney on the wall. And I assume they took that out for the same reason they took out a scene in Pirates of the Caribbean where they're in Isla de Muertos and they go down a little waterfall on their boat because it was too much of a reference to Disney and the theme parks, and it wasn't needed for a general audience because most people haven't been to a Disney park. They've never been to Tomorrowland, the area. They don't know what that is. This is just a sci-fi movie that has this name, and some people might recognize it, but they took out specifically the reference to Disney.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, so we pick up from her picking up the pin, and but we don't know that's a commercial at the time.
No, we were hinted at it because the timer runs out and she's like there a woman talks to her but she like waves her hand in front of her face and she doesn't respond. So we get the idea that this isn't real and that it's only lasting a certain amount of time. But
Yeah, this is the first time we saw the countdown clock going on with
yes,
it.
which I assume only starts when because she's touched it multiple times and no countdown has started. I assume the minute she finds her way to a space in her real world where she can see the commercial. That's the whole point is I guess they start you if we're talking about the logic of this, the pin starts you the first time you touch it outside of the area so that you're intrigued enough to want to go in. That
Hmm.
makes sense. And then you have to find your way there. And once you're in the middle of that area, you're on a predetermined pathway because she's only seeing stuff she's meant to see. And then later George Clooney's like, "Yeah, they've got space for you on the ship and they're saving a seat for you." Like that's something a character directly says to her in that
Right.
commercial. So clearly it's like it doesn't matter where she went in that world, she would always see the same things. She'd always be on a train, see the same stuff. She's it's a trailer. She's seeing a trailer, the best parts of the movie. And I
There's a
assume
line
the
that he
timer
says.
starts then.
There's a line that he says later that's related to this, where he says it was an invitation to a party that never happened, and I
Yeah.
thought that's kind of a cool concept. Like it paints the picture a little bit better. I honestly think that a second viewing through this made me appreciate it more, understanding a little bit of it. But when I saw it the first time, I kind of must have blacked out afterwards because a lot of this stuff, like I didn't remember the timer on the back of the pin. I did not remember.
Let's talk about that blast from the past show. I'll bring it up on
Yes,
screen for everyone to see as
yes,
well.
because as someone who is a collector of all kinds of garbage, uh, I was like heartbroken at the end of that scene when there was a lot of devastation. But when she goes into it, there's so much Disney IP in there between
X-wing
the
stuff,
Star
Lost
Wars
in
stuff.
Space
Yeah,
robot, R2D2. There's an Iron Giant thing because Brad Bird did Iron Giant for 20th Century Fox. There's a lot more
yeah.
Star Wars stuff everywhere than normal. Here's my
But what I do
question:
love is,
how long has
yeah,
Catherine Hahn and Keegan Michael Key been operating this shop since Athena also left? Like
maybe.
25 years ago? When, like, have they been living their lives? Have they just been actually selling stuff? More to the point, how many people have they killed because they might know something? The amount of
Yeah,
murder in this movie is insane.
right. Well, especially with the robots, but I'm sorry, the audio animatronics. That's the
Yes.
thing. So when they go to the website to find out where the like about the pin, like her little brother like tracks it down to this address, and there's no phone number, there's just an address, so she has to go there. Maybe that's what this is. Maybe that's an elaborate way to lure you in because you can't call them. You have to go into the shop to inquire about it, and when you do, then they just kill you.
They lock the door and kill you, yeah. But otherwise, like 99, we know Athena had 12 pins, I think, and this is the last one. So it's possible that the other people who touched the pins, they just threw them out. I don't know. They disposed of them. They're stuck in a drawer somewhere, etc. I'm curious how many people went to this shop and got murdered by. By the way, isn't it weird that they call it a Disney thing and then it's evil and murderous? Like, we see other robots, and like the robot that first helps young Frank rebuild his jetpack at the beginning, it's a nice robot, it's not trying to murder him. And then we see quintessential audio animatronics, and they're trying to kill our main character. To be fair, Athena's also a robot, but it's just weird that they call them audio animatronics, and they don't even bring up why they're called that. It's just accepted that that's the name. Again, I think it's because they took out any reference to Disney, unless you are a Disney fan and you know this stuff. Oh, even in this shot,
I
by the way,
mean,
in this shot, you can see that picture of Walt in the top. Let me rewind it really quick.
I
There it
love
is in
that
the.
at the counter you can see the black cauldron when she puts down the pin. I mean, the black hole. That you can see the pin,
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
black hole magazine or whatever is
These
there.
right
Um,
in the middle of it. And then two Star
Maybe it's
Wars
the soundtrack.
Marvel specials.
Yeah, yeah. Because I love me the black hole. I think that is a really neat Disney movie that we also that we reviewed at one point. When we were getting Disney Plus, there were two movies in particular that I was very excited to see again. One was The Black Hole, the other one was Condor Man. And Condor Man has never made it, which again would be a great one for you. Have you ever heard of it, Condor Man?
No, I actually
Oh my
haven't.
God. Oh my God. You would. What's the dude's name? Michael something that played the Phantom, famously played the Phantom of the Opera.
Oh,
Um,
Tom, who played the Phantom of the Opera?
Gerard Butler,
No, in the original,
Michael Crawford.
Michael Crawford.
he is Condor Man, which is a ridiculous character, and so yeah, Michael Crawford is in there. So yeah, and I wished it was on Disney Plus, but it wasn't. So kind of a bummer, but I do love that they give reference to the black hole, especially since we're in a Tomorrowland sci-fi kind of a world here.
Yeah. Hang on, I'm trying to
But then they
find.
blow up the shop, and I get very sad.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say that shop is a gigantic set, but sorry, there's something I'm looking for on the internet right now.
Is it the Coyote versus Acme? Because I hear that's very hard to find.
No, weirdly enough, it's a trailer for the movie Knuckles, like a Sonic spin-off.
Ah, why?
Because there's a scene where they're in a car with this.
Eh,
Oh, here it is. There seems to be this. Most of the movie, and I'm going to put this on screen, is this. This movie is a road trip movie, which means the only thing that you can do is have a character who knows everything and a character who knows nothing. And the character who knows nothing is constantly asking questions to the person who knows everything. And we get scenes like this where it's just people in a car talking. We got that in this movie as well, Sonic. Sonic can run at the speed of light. And yet most of this movie, it's him and James Marsden in a car talking. And the trailer for Knuckles just came out. And It's him in a car with another guy going to a place, and it's some normal human white guy.
That's Adam
And
Paley.
that's all of these movies is just Knuckles. Who knows who the hell this guy is? But
Adam
I'm
Paley.
so sick
You know
of
what his character is? I don't know.
it's just all these. I keep saying white people because that's the frequent main character of all these movies. If there's a character who's the main guy, it has to be a white person, and I hate that so much. There's a but the scene of her, Athena and Casey in a car is most of the movie, because it's not the movie is about them trying to get to Tomorrowland, and when they finally get there, it's disappointing. And I
But
don't.
but the car thing, though, I will say, is about exposition. It's about, which exposition to me, if done poorly, makes me angry. But it's about exposition. Is that through the character who knows everything, telling the character who knows nothing, we are learning what the purpose of this journey is, or the details of the journey. So, I think that's definitely the device they use is the writing in a car, because it's both the characters are on screen at the same time and you can see them and they're explaining whatever that is. I think that's probably just a sloppy device that they're using to tell to move the story along. But I never
I'm
thought of it.
I'm doing a Kickstarter right now for a comic that I started 10 years ago. And the point of the Kickstarter is I've remastered every single page, which means I went back and I rewrote chunks of dialogue that fix things that happen later on in the story. Retrospectively rewriting some dialogue. And I realized that the main character, because he is the only human in this sort of fantastical supernatural element, he's asking too many questions about it, because all that he can do is be confused. And what I did when I rewrote it is I was like, instead of him asking questions about things, he went, I'm going to assume that you blah, 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 blah. And then the other character goes, that is correct. And it's more interesting that he just makes these guesses, or just can gather context clues from what's happening in the story, and then the other characters can either confirm or deny, or be like, that's kind of close. And I feel like there's a way of doing it here. Like, in this scene, she keeps asking questions, and Athena's like, if you keep asking questions, I'm going to shut down. She shuts down. And then, when she comes back, Casey keeps asking more questions. And I'm like, there's got to be a better way of doing it.
But Frank does the same thing, right? He tells her, like, stop asking questions. You're asking the questions. That's another question. So, yeah, they're all in on the whole stop asking questions bit. But I feel like that when this movie's over, we are still filled with questions. So
Yes!
I think she should have asked more.
They could have,
Just throwing that out there.
They could have done the WALL-E thing. In WALL-E, Pixar's WALL-E, characters, there's no one talks for like the first 30 minutes of the movie. There's some lines of dialogue, but the most important thing that happens is we as an audience can look at the state of the world and understand what's going on. There's a giant Walmart looking thing. We gather through visual gags that this was our world and something happened. But then we get that scene where WALL-E's going back to his house and a bunch of video screens pop up that explain how, by and large, is like, hey, we've created these things and they're going to clean up while you're away on a space cruise. And that explains it to us without anyone having to ask questions. Athena could have been like, oh, I'm tired of your questions, Casey. Here. And then she plugs into the car. She's like, watch this video. And then we see a commercial for Plus Ultra. And it's like, only intended for Plus Ultra members. Hi, so you want to go to Tomorrowland. That's the way you could have done that. And then now Casey knows stuff and she could just be like, I get it now, so blank, blank, blank. And then you reiterate those things.
Yeah, I agree. So by the time we're introduced to all this stuff, we go through the whole early life of Frank. Frank gets to, Tomorrowland. Then we flash forward to Casey, and she's causing problems because she's trying to save her dad's job by blowing up or stopping the cranes from tearing apart the Cape Canaveral launch pad or whatever, which seems like another storyline. And then, we get to her finding the pin, her then obsessed with the pin, going to Houston, getting into Houston and finding this little shop and then almost getting blown away, which is where she meets Athena, and then some back and forth with Athena and these bad guys until she gets to Frank's house and is dumped off at Frank's house. Athena dumps her off and drives away so that she'll go talk to Frank. So because Athena,
Privately.
I guess, is not ready to talk to Frank, and so I mean, this is a long movie, dude. This is 2 hours and 10 minute movie, and by this point, we still really haven't gone to Tomorrowland, and
No,
it's just like so much crap has happened and nothing's happened.
we are at an hour into the movie is when this like cool house assault scene happens, where we get some cool
Yes.
sci-fi elements happening. This an hour
Yeah.
in is where we actually see George Clooney, other than the beginning. And again, our characters, like you said, we haven't even gotten there because this movie was billed as or teased as this grand epic sci-fi adventure thing. And then the
Right.
movie's a road trip movie about going to Tomorrowland and, questioning the state of people and what's good and what's evil and all this nonsense. By the way, the
Yeah.
music slaps in this scene. This scene is amazing. Brad Bird knows how to direct
So
a fun action scene, I guess.
Yeah, the scene, the whole house scene, like you talked about, the attack scene or whatever, the whole house scene is great. And this is, like you said, the first time we're really seeing some technology at play here, and seeing that he's kind of, it's like MacGyver meets John Wick as he's going through this thing because of the fight scenes and stuff blowing up and all of the tech and a lot of it that he's made himself. And yeah, I think this is good, and it picks up and it's fun. But then everything from here till they get to Tomorrowland is so confusing because he's not telling her why they're getting in this tube, how they're getting. They show up in Paris, but is it Paris now or Paris? Like it took me a minute to go. No, this is just Paris. Like they just transported to Paris, and then
Yes.
they're
The
in the
thing
Eiffel
they were
Tower.
in wasn't teleporting them to Tomorrowland. It was teleporting them to Paris, where they can then
Right.
use a rocket ship hidden in the Eiffel Tower. The Eiffel
Yes,
Tower is just a giant launch tower for a rocket.
dude.
Casey's dad works
Yeah.
for NASA. They're going in a rocket. I guess that just needed to happen. And then because they need the power or the speed to go through a portal to this alternate version of Earth, which I guess is it's an alternate reality. They're going through a portal to Earth 2.0, etc. But
Yeah.
they could have
Well,
just. We're an hour and 20 minutes into the movie. An ordinary
yeah, right,
children's movie like Winnie the Pooh is done by now, and any other movie
right.
would be in the final wrap up where the hero returns back home and is changed.
We're not even to the third act yet. Yeah, exactly. So, but the fact that like the Eiffel Tower opens up, part of me thinks that's cool, and part of me thinks, like we have that icon of the Empire State Building, and
Yes.
they use that in Percy Jackson as the pathway to the gods, to Olympus. And then the same thing with like National Treasure. Like there's a map on the back of the Constitution, taking these things that we know are these huge monuments or whatever, and then rewriting their history to fit the movie. Do you like that? Like, I don't know. Like the fact that the Eiffel Tower split apart and then the ship comes up from the underneath the ground, and this like swirly pavement that I feel like someone would have noticed by now.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just a little.
Also,
It
somebody is
it seemed
conveniently on the
unnecessary.
edge of that and doesn't fall in, but somebody with a pram is definitely right in the middle of that thing and didn't have time when it split open and fell down a launch pit rocket tube to their death. Like someone died from that. And all this
Yeah,
debris is
exactly.
falling off of the thing. Yeah, I like, I mean, that's fun. It's ridiculous. I'm not expecting this movie to be realistic. It's a sci-fi. The fi part of sci-fi is fiction, and that means that it's fake. And in a sci-fi movie, I expect things to be fun and silly. Like yeah, like the National Treasure stuff. Oh my god, there's a hidden treasure hill underneath Mount Washington. Mount Washington was Mount Rushmore. I don't know U.S. places. Mount Rushmore is just a cover for the thing that's actually underneath it in a lake that you have to drain. It's silly. I love it. Those movies are fun. I'll rewatch National Treasure any day. Those movies are great.
That's what I was asking you if like you liked that kind of thing. Because again, for me, I get it and I'm curious about it, but I don't know. It just felt like in this one a little bit forced. But is there actually a room at the top of the Eiffel Tower? I've never been, but is there a room at the top of the Tower that has like Tesla and Edison and like a setup of these inventors
I don't
in
know.
wax form? Is
I
that a
think
thing?
we hadn't talked about Plus Ultra up until now. So this is the part where George Clooney gets to explain what Plus Ultra was. And I guess, Jules Verne, we needed to be in Paris. Can I say what I think should have happened at this part in the movie? Instead of class gather around, they should have gone to Disneyland Paris. And then they're like, they walk up to Space Mountain, which is designed to be from the Earth to the Moon, the giant cannon from the Earth to the Moon books. And they go, but this is just a ride for kids, and he's like, it was just a cover. This is stupider than the Eiffel Tower. No, you know what? It's as stupid as the Eiffel Tower, but they could be
Give yourself some credit, man. It's as stupid.
It's as stupid as the Eiffel Tower. They could be like, yeah, normally it's a roller coaster, but it's actually a functioning cannon, and it's not going to take us to space. This is going to be a rocket, and the end of it turns into a portal, and it sends you to Tomorrowland. That could have been fine.
I will watch that movie.
Why? Because Jules Verne wrote From the Earth to the Moon, and he wasn't writing a book that was fiction. He was writing what could be a proposed way to get to Tomorrowland or some shit like that. They could use the same excuse for the Eiffel Tower as a cover for a giant rocket ship, or they could be like, oh yeah, this silly ride is actually a ride to Tomorrowland. And then you could tie it in. You could even be like, wait, isn't Tomorrowland like a Disney? They're like, oh yeah, this was actually called Tomorrowland, but because they wanted it like Jules Verne, they called it Discoveryland instead. Also, like, they could have done all that shit. They could have made this like a straight up Disney fan movie in that regard. It would have alienated an audience, but even without it, an audience still got alienated.
Why would it have? Because you would have described it in there. I don't think it would have alienated it. It would have definitely been fan service to the Disney community, no doubt. And I'm here for that any day of the week you want to put that out there. Putting Space Mountain in that Tomorrowland was fan service. So I think I'm okay with that. You had me at canon. I love that idea. We are already doing that. We could have just done it faster and with more Disney. Rewrite it, dude.
You
Make
could
it
have filmed
happen.
at your
I'm here
own
for
theme
it.
park, yeah. And then you would have tied, the parks back into it more. You keep the scene where they talk about Walt Disney, and then be like, "We're going to Disney," and they're like, "Yeah, Plus Ultra," and they're like, "Oh yeah, the robots told me that." Like, why'd the robot tell her anything? Why didn't the robot just shoot her in the leg and then take the pin? Like, why did the robots take the time to explain that to her?
But the dumbest question, though, the tube that takes him from his house or the TV station to the Eiffel Tower.
Yes.
Why isn't there something like that in this world where they have doorways, right? They have these magical doorways that open up into our world because they were about to push George Clooney out into an island one.
Yes.
Why aren't there more of those that just let us walk in rather than the entire Eiffel Tower opening up, picking up? And I guess the point of that was he was not supposed to be he was not supposed to be allowed to come back, and this was like
this was the secret way back in case every other way was closed.
You're right. You're right, because when they're landing, they get there and like the parachutes launch and they bang into all these buildings, and it's like you would think there'd be I don't know, like fail safes for that in their world. Like even Jules Verne or whoever was Tesla or whoever was gonna take this thing, you would think that he would not want to be like launched into buildings on his way back.
Yeah,
so,
no, they have we see it at the beginning. They have like the little subway car thing. That's their version, in their own middle space between worlds. That's under the Flushing Meadows Park, I guess.
Right.
But this is the fail-safe method. This is not fail-safe.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, you're right. You're right.
This is the push button in case of emergency version.
Everything after they get here is kind of Act 3. And so when they get there and they run into Nyx and and she still has no idea what she's doing there, how she's supposed to save the world, all this stuff. And then they take her up into the bubble, and then like there's the thing where we get the preview of how Athena's going to save Frank because
Yeah,
of the whole like
the
she loses her hat
tachyons.
and yeah, the tachyon thing. So you knew that was coming back at some point.
They just get
But
to
like
Tomorrowland, and we're an hour and a half into the movie. Any other movie is done by now. Typically, a
right,
movie
but
is
I feel
90
like
minutes.
despite that, the first two acts built up a very complex story, and I feel like that Act 3 they just kind of made it up. I don't know. It felt like made up. Like yes, you can see the future. The only way to do it, I guess, is to this thing's probably causing the future to be a problem, so blow it up and big fight scene. I don't know. I felt like it fell apart a little bit there. You don't?
Can you name a movie that has a satisfying third act and conclusion? I have one in my head I could just grab off the top of my head. But can you think of
I
a
have
movie
another.
that is perfectly written in that regard?
I'm thinking of another one that I also think is garbage, but because
Sure.
like I think a lot of times they do that is that they rush at the end. Even these like Disney Plus series, like they do all this build up, and then the last episode was almost like, hey, we forgot we were supposed to wrap this up in 8 episodes. Let's just throw some crap together. So you tell me the one you think of as the good one. I don't know. I can't think of one.
Back to the Future? Back to the Future Part 1.
What? Okay, I was
Yeah.
gonna say because
Not the third
two,
movie as a third act structure of a trilogy.
right?
I'm saying just taken fully out of just the first movie on its own
Yeah.
is the perfect satisfying conclusion. The whole ending sequence is amazing with like building up the car, that the car isn't going to work, Doc needs to do all this stuff, the thing with the letter, and he's like, you need to know about the future and all this stuff. And then at the end we get the conclusion, and then we get all this extra follow-up, which you normally don't get in old movies. Like I just watched the original Journey to the Center of the Earth and 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Both were made about 2 years apart from each other, 1965, 1967. And both of those movies are like, well, the movie's done, goodbye, credits. Like, once the main action of the movie is done, credits just roll. And they're
Yeah.
like, get out of the theater,
I
the
get
movie's finished. With Back to the Future, we get like a complete wrap up of like, where are they now? What has changed? And then we get a satisfying little tease for the next adventure. I maintain that Back to the Future is probably a perfect movie. Like a movie that doesn't do that like satisfying conclusion. I might say like Ghostbusters. Like there's the big amazing action scene at the end, and then it's like, get it, yeah, movie's done, get out. And
Yeah.
this movie
I'm
lingers on
sure there
all
are others,
that.
but yeah. Yeah, this one's not good. The ending of it just it seems like they wrap up the ending too quickly, and then they have so many sub endings. So
Yes.
this is where it got heavy handed about the environmental issues, and Nick's telling everybody, well, you're not gonna do anything about it anyway. They fight. Athena gives her life, but then they save the world, then they don't really tell us how we're going to save it moving forward, other than the fact that this machine was causing it to maybe happen faster, and it was like this manifest destiny sort of a situation. But then then there's like the whole rebirth part of like we're reenacting the recruitment, and apparently that's where we started the movie. We're reenacting the recruitment program, and everybody gets a box of pins to take out into the world. And then when everybody shows up, like that was a great ending, but it was an undeserved ending because you didn't really finish the story. I feel like, does that make sense? Like the sweet ending with everybody like showing up, in the
Yeah.
field, all that was nice. It was a good ending, but it just feels very undeserved because I don't think we should have been there. But before we go into that, the thing you mentioned before about Athena and George Clooney, that
Oh
seemed
yeah,
like a
yeah.
very
That's uncomfortable.
seemed
Let's talk about that part.
that's what I'm saying. Is felt very uncomfortable, the whole scene with him like, basically confessing his love to a 12-year-old.
They okay, so Governor Nix made the fake invention thing at the World's Fair to find brilliant people. We see that he takes a couple of them with him to Tomorrowland to explain what is actually doing. But
Right.
he invented what I assume are these recruiters. This one is a little girl. And so she clocks Frank Walker as a child and goes, "This kid is interesting and brilliant. I'm doing what my programming is by saying, this boy should be with us." And then Governor Nix goes, "No." She's like, "I chose him. You invented me to choose people like him." And he goes, "Yeah, but I don't want him." So, huh? And then he arrives. He's like, "It would be interesting if your jetpack worked." And then, sorry, do you want to come and say something? Come on.
I just have this little side piece.
Come on. Welcome, Thomas.
Hi. So Governor Nix, in my opinion, that moment where she's like, I choose him, but he doesn't pick her, it's because he can't be wrong. And that's the real, like, thrust behind his character. He
Yes.
can't be wrong, even to the point where he's willing to, like, destroy the Earth because he's like, oh, the Earth is doomed anyways, I'm just accelerating it, and,
We'll talk about that after.
Oh, are you doing a chronological?
Yeah, we're getting to the end.
I gotta get out of here.
No, but we're talking about Athena as a character and like what she's meant to be doing and stuff.
You know what? I have one opinion about Athena. She was an okay child actress.
Yeah,
I was
sure.
not annoyed.
So she is a little girl. She picks Frank when he's a little boy. They're visually about the same age, but then he ages into like his 20s ish, and that's when he's banished. So 1964 was the World Fair. 1980 is when he gets banished. He has already aged. She's still a little girl. He's like, "Oh, you're a robot, and you kind of like betrayed me because I thought we had something, but you're a robot, so you'll never be in love with me." But then now he's an old man. Now he's Danny Ocean, and now he's Danny Ocean, and she's still a little girl, and he still has feelings for her as he remembered himself as a young boy.
Right.
And that's weird now because he looks at her with this decades long emotional relationship almost, and it's just weird. And I don't know if there's a way you could have done it better where like Athena is like a little bit older when he is young, so then, you know, Disney's not shy about little boys kissing adult women, for example. The movie Blank Check, for example. So we could have done that. It's fine for a little boy to have a crush on an older woman. That's what little boys do when they discover, you know, babysitters, teachers, etc. That could have been fine. And then when you have older George Clooney, she might still be a bit younger than him, but it wouldn't be too creepy. Or she changes her appearance. We see Athena as a little girl then, but then when she starts to meet Casey, maybe she's older. She's cybernetically enhanced herself to make herself appropriate for George Clooney, but she's still the same robot person. I don't know. We could get into a whole discussion about ages and movies and consent and all that
end
shit.
it here and say it just feels icky. It just feels
icky. And there's no other way you could have done it. This is the only, except maybe Frank was just Frank is like maybe in his 30s. It would have been less creepy if he looked younger, maybe.
No, I don't think that's
It's
true.
still creepy regardless. Tom's trying to hone this conversation back down, as he rightfully should.
Okay.
But it is the weird thing about the movie. We can say that. That's why we wanted to talk about it, because it's such a weird part of the film. I think a lot of people were slightly put off by that.
I think the mix between the heavy-handed environmental angle, and again, not that we don't need to save the world, but that you're going and paying money to go to escape for them to preach to you, you need to save the world. There's that, and then there's this very creepy relationship between George Clooney and this little girl, and
Yes.
then the fact that I think that so much of this movie is very still confusing, unexplained, and not satisfied ending. I think a lot of people left and were like, "Oh, I saw Tomorrowland. It was okay. I wouldn't recommend it, but it was okay." Like I think that that just left you with the wrong vibe when you left and was over. Now again, rewatching it now and seeing that ending with everybody coming out of the field, and like I'm a little better, and I'm like, oh, okay, you know what, this should have been, it should have gotten a little bit better play. But I do think people didn't understand what it was, and I don't think people who went and saw it cared enough about it to revisit it, to recommend it, all that kind of stuff. That's just me. That's just my thought.
Can we talk about the monitor and what it does and why it's so pivotal in the movie?
Okay.
It's so the monitor is the big ball, the spaceship Earth looking ball that they destroy. Also weird.
There's one on the ground at one point. Is that the same one?
Huh?
Because there's a scene in when she goes to Tomorrowland in the commercial that
Yeah.
that ball is on the ground in the same way that Spaceship Earth is on the ground.
Oh.
In this, it's levitating up above the city.
I don't. Should I go back and look if it's on the ground? Maybe it's
Yeah,
just they didn't plan on lifting it up into the sky yet.
I don't know. I mean, it seems like its purpose is to monitor the like our reality and see how it's doing. Is that, do you think
They
its purpose?
found. I assume that they found the tachyons that are in that area, which is why it's up in the sky, because that's where the tachyons are. And
Sure.
and they built.
You want to be where the tachyons are. Absolutely.
They invented stuff. They invented stuff here. And one of the things they invented is a thing that can see through time in the past and in the future. It's not supposed to predict the future. Or, sorry, no, it's not supposed to make evil futures happen. This device just shows what would happen if the events of today continue into tomorrow. And so they saw that at some point it starts getting all staticky, and they were confused because the events of that time are in flux, kind of like Back to the Future.
Sure.
And then we see what the future would be like if the events of today continue, and we see just mass destruction. And they say anywhere after the static, and the static is going to occur 30 days from now, when we see Casey and Frank in modern day. 30 days from now, this static happens. We don't know what happens, but anytime after that, the world ends. And through whatever happens, we see we see like, what's that massive desert with all the cool monuments? Monument Valley? Is that what it's called?
Sure.
Yeah. We see Monument Valley like on fire. And it's like, okay, so heat, flooding, war, pandemic, etc. They're just saying that any of these things are possible if the way people act today continues. But they predicted this, they must have predicted this back in the 80s when Frank got banished. He got banished because of this thing and because he tried to tell people about it or change it or something. So the monitor, they leave it on, and Frank, after being banished, uses satellites to pirate the signal that the monitor gives off in that world. He's tapping into another world. So that at the end they say, what if that it's currently broadcasting stuff? It's not meant to do that, but you picked up a signal from another world through the satellite. What if that's happening with everybody else in the world? So when you turn on the radio and you hear that bad things are happening, it's not an actual radio signal you're hearing. You're hearing a futuristic prediction made by this monitor, and that makes people in the present day sad and scared. And so the inevitable destruction of the world will happen It's a self-fulfilling prophecy kind of thing. You get told the world is going to end. You start thinking about, like, he says that. What if I could tell you the date you die? And she's like, I'd want to know, but I wouldn't believe you. Be like, you know, what if knowing my death is what makes it happen? So that's what they're saying at the end of the movie with what the monitor's doing. Hearing about the end of the world is what's going to make the end of the world happen, because people will act the way they will when the world ends, or something. Like, that's the thing. Do you hear me trying to explain it? It's like rambling, because that's what the movie is.
But that is the solution. Is we've figured that out and we're going to blow up the monitor and we save the world. But all of the explanation that you gave is like 19 times more explanation than they gave about this. That's why I say it's unearned. It's like, yeah, they kind of hinted at it, but in a sentence, she's like, oh, remember how you get these signals? Well, maybe that this is what's causing, you know, us to have this destiny and we should blow it up. He's like, yep, blow it up. Okay, cool. Again, it's just real quick. It's not enough of a payoff. It's kind of like when, you know, Scooby-Doo and they unmask, you know, whoever the villain was, and it was somebody we've never seen or we saw for 18 seconds. You know, I mean, that's what this strikes me as, is like, you know, this big villain thing is something that they didn't really go to enough effort to explain why it would be the villain, and then we have to blow it up. If you go to 35 minutes and 3 seconds into this movie, you'll see that the big ball, and I think it's the same thing as the monitor that we're talking about. You see that big ball, and it's in the commercial that Casey's going through. And so, you know, 3503.
Okay.
So you see it. She kind of pans to the side to look for a second, and you see it, and it's at ground level. And that's where because I was looking for things that would remind me of Disney in this world. And so as I'm looking through and seeing that, it doesn't make sense that then it's like stuck to the top of a tower when they come back, floating in the air in a thing that requires, I don't know, it seemed weird to me.
It's possible that's just
a
ball.
It very well could be. Very well could be, but it just looks too similar. It's that, you know, that same concept. But I don't know. Like I said, I think it's unearned. I think that there's not enough payoff there to justify that this was our resolution to this movie.
Well, we get Hugh Laurie's evil villain speech where he's like, we used this. I started broadcasting this to the world, to Earth 1.0, to show them a vision of the future that's scary and that the world's going to end, and they embraced it by making video games and movies and TV shows and all this stuff. And he's like, you gobbled it up and like you full-heartedly saw the end of the world and ran to it with gleeful abandon, is what he says. And I'm like, okay, but so you broadcasted it and now people are doing it, and then they're like, let's just turn it off. He's like, there is no off. He's like, if we were to let people come here and show them Tomorrowland, now this is where it gets stupid. He says, humans are just awful, and even if we let them in, that what happens in that world will happen here. So he's like, even if we do let people see this bright, beautiful future, by letting them come to this alternate reality of Earth, they're still going to fuck it up, is what he's saying. So now the message is humanity is bad regardless. And Casey is just supposed to be this endless bout of optimism that even just her being like, we can change the future, just automatically makes the future become better because she exists. Yep. And it's weird because the rest of the movie she's like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, and then they're like, you're special. She's like, I don't know how I'm special. And he's like, what should I do? And he's like, I don't know, just be yourself. Like, it never really pays off in any way that she does anything except, I guess, the events of the end of the movie where the monitor gets blown up. And I guess let's show that really quick. The monitor gets blown up. because Athena is about to self-destruct, so they drop her in and she blows up the Epcot ball. The monitor explodes, which means there's no more evil signals being broadcast to Earth. So now people on Earth are just free to do whatever their own devices are, I guess. And now they're like, okay, so now what can we do? We got to start putting out more positivity into the world by showing people this vision of Tomorrowland. And that's all they do. And we don't really see that, like, we don't really get that WALL-E after credits scene where we see the humans thriving and bringing about a new renaissance age for humans. They find water, plants start growing, and Wally and Eve are happy together. There's that there's the scene in the credits where we see all of that. Tom has something to say.
I will say that the reason we don't see that is because that's the movie's call to action.
Yes.
We're the ones because
that's what Rob was saying.
Yeah.
We have to now do this. This movie is preaching something that we have to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, I left the video playing way too long there. But yeah, it's the end of the movie. They can't show us how everything gets fixed because it's up to us now. The future, the movie is us going out and finding this pin, and suddenly we could just be better people. But no, the pin is the movie. It's us watching this movie and being like, oh my god, that world is possible. If only we invested in Chevrolet motor cars more and buy Coca-Cola.
Pin is the movie. I like that. The pin is the movie. The idea is that we picked up this movie, no one else saw it, and we saw a whole world and a future, and our future's brighter, and we're gonna work towards getting to it.
Here's my question.
So now what we have to do as human beings is pass out more pins.
Who are these people? Are these other Earth 2.0 people, or are these robots that are looking for the next person to lead them because Governor Nix is dead?
I don't know. That's a good question. I have my own question about robots. Is that in the scene where they're recruiting all these kids, and I assume they send kids out into the world because kids are less threatening, maybe? Like if they can make robots any age, why would the recruiters all be kids? But maybe it's because they're less threatening. Why do they all look
that is
different?
That is the answer.
But why do they all look different? We're sending them all to different places. Why do they all look different? Like, why didn't they all look like Athena? Like, you already had that mold, that pattern. Even Disney redoes animatronics. There's the whole story of the faces in Spaceship Earth are of John from Carousel of Progress, or from presidents, like FDR is right there in the papyrus scene. Like, these are the things that I'm like, why did they? It would be more practical if they all looked the same, or at least similar.
If I recall, from the numerous amounts of Disney videos I used to watch, Carousel of Progress is the past and the present, and Spaceship Earth represents the past and the present, and then Horizons was the future. So when we see John and Mary or whatever from Carousel at their future world, the final scene of Carousel of Progress is Horizons. Horizons is an expansion of that final scene of like, here's the possibilities of the future or whatever. So I think they are,
or it would be
meant to be
the next scene. It would be the next scene in the Carousel. But what I'm saying is, like, they're I don't know. It just seems to me, though, my point was that I feel like that they don't in this make enough effort to, like...
You can end your sentence there. They don't make enough effort.
There you go.
No, go on. What were you going to say?
No, I guess to, like, we see that Frank and Cassie are trying to... is it Cassie or Casey? Casey are trying to, like, Cassie, that's Ant-Man. And Casey are trying to, like, restart this Tomorrowland project, and in doing so, they've made all these new recruiters, and I just feel like they should have been, the same. Like, they wouldn't have had the same technology necessarily at their fingertips. Also, why is Tim McGraw wearing that silly outfit?
And why is everyone else in beige?
Yeah.
There's that advertising for Chevrolet.
But it is a very the ending is very filled with hope and it's very uplifting. And so that's why I said, like, there is a good ending to it. I just don't think it deserved it. I don't think that it's an undeserved ending because they didn't have the right payoff to close out the movie. That's just that again. That's we're nitpicking it obviously, but I think that's my thing. Is that can I sit down and enjoy this movie beginning to end as just a person watching the movie? Sure, but I feel like it could have been better. You were talking before we started the show about movies that feel like they're written by computers or movies where
Yeah.
they don't even try. This felt like they just gave up and they didn't even try on that Back to the Future ending. Again, this is a beautiful shot, filled with hope, and
like I
all
said,
that stuff.
Damon Lindelof wrote this, and it's the same thing as Lost, where it's the movie's a mystery box. That's the thing. J.J. Abrams and his crappy mystery box, which is you get pulled in by what is Tomorrowland? How are they gonna like? We want to see more of this sci-fi thing, and then you see the movie, and the movie's not that at all. It's just it's a lot of unexplained lore. It's a lot of main character not actually doing or anything interesting, and then it's the end where it's like, what do we do now? And they're like, I don't know.
Well, I can see that they set this up in such a way that it could have had a sequel. Clearly, there wasn't much in-park promotion or
What would
tie-ins
the
like that, and
sequel be?
merchandising. There was hardly any. What would the sequel be? They're restarting the project. You have all these
But
people
then
who are
what
filled with
happens
hope
that makes
and
the movie plot go? There needs to be a new villain or some evil thing that happens by time travel.
oh, there's
or
always a
whatever.
new villain. There's always a new villain. I don't know.
Governor
Sequels are
Nix's
hard
head.
for sequels are hard for me because they
Don't like that
usually
one.
mean they have to take the happy ending from one and break it. Right? That's what a sequel is. They take the happy ending from one and break it so that we have a new chaos.
Yes.
And so I'm not saying there should have been one, but they certainly opened this up to we're starting this project over again. Anything could happen. So there could have been a sequel. By the way, I love Brad Bird. I think that Incredibles is by far my favorite Pixar movie. That's number one for me. And Iron Giant, excellent movie. So I love Brad Bird. I think that he's this was I think his first big live action maybe.
Sounds about right.
But I don't know. So what's the takeaway here, Tyler?
I don't know. Okay, so like, let's take the easy route of like, would you recommend this movie? And I'd say, I mean, it's not like a riffable movie. Like, it's not something you can sit down and make fun of with a bunch of friends.
Right.
And I wouldn't even say that it's like a delightful popcorn movie. I mean, there's enough action scenes in it where it could be, but it's not even really that funny. Like, there's not a whole lot of jokes. The funniest thing, sorry, so I watched this yesterday with people in the Discord. And if you're not in there yet, go to screenholdtv.com and join the Discord, because we do stuff like this now. We watched the movie, and the funniest thing that happens was when Casey gets kidnapped by Athena after the Blast from the Past store. They do a little bit of the car thing, and then she leaves the car, and then Athena's like, wait, where are you going? And then a truck hits her. and we all laughed, and then I went, and that's how Regina George died. Throwing back to Mean Girls. And we laughed because of that. Like, it was, I think the movie was supposed to make it seem funny. Yeah, she's not real. She's not a human. But it like that part was unintentionally so funny. And it's not because someone like,
honestly,
Catherine Hahn.
It always is though.
What?
Getting hit by a bus always is, like, or a truck or whatever. It feels like it always is. Like you were saying, Regina George. It happens in Mean Girls and Mean Girls the musical. And then it also happens in like it happened in Brooklyn Nine-Nine, where I don't know if you've ever watched that show, but Gina gets hit. Yeah, she gets hit by a bus. Like it always is just jarring. There was a TV show on FX called Nip Tuck. Same thing. It's always jarring when you see it. In a situation like this, it could be funny. like but also it's jarring when it happens. So,
Yeah,
sorry.
in Mean Girls, it's like, what the hell? Like, why did that happen? And then people are like, and then they misconstrue the situation. They're like, Katie pushed her in front of the bus, and then they're like, I'm
Right.
voting for Katie because she pushed someone in front of a bus for homecoming queen or whatever. Uh,
Yep.
but yeah, like, that's only funny because like, Regina George is such an awful person. There's no redemption for her. Then she gets hit by a bus and almost died for like 5 seconds. Or she did die for 5 seconds, and then she's like, really gave me some time to think about stuff. And like that's the only thing that was gonna get her to change. In this one, it was just like, I guess it was funny because this little girl got like pummeled by a truck, and it came out of nowhere. We could have gotten a scene where she like gets splashed with water or something, and then she short circuits. Like, they could have done anything. They're already in a car. That car was working fine. It's not like they needed that
Yeah.
truck. It was just weird. But yeah, like, would I recommend it? If you like sci-fi, there's not enough sci-fi in it. The best, honestly, I would just say have someone like me go show you like the best scenes, and then you listen to the best songs on the soundtrack. A penultimate experience, all House of Salt, and then the final musical sting. Like, the Michael Giacchino music is great. The Disney Easter eggs are fun. I wouldn't really say it's the best part of the movie because there aren't really enough of them. But yeah, like, I think it just fails in like trying to get that message out. I think Wally just does a better job of that environmental message because it
Yeah.
shows the world
But it's
already
not
fucking demolished.
right. It's not as heavy-handed. It's in there, but it's not preachy. It's just showing you and giving you that feeling of, man, I need to start recycling more. I need to start walking instead of driving. Like, it gives you
Yeah,
that feeling of, I want to do better. And this one is just telling you, if you don't do better, we're screwed, which may be true, but like, again, I'm not looking for that in my entertainment.
yeah,
I still go back to the fact that there were like five of these movies that were all around the same time frame. And you threw
yep,
Tron Legacy in there. I feel like Tron Legacy, maybe it's just because I love Tron. I feel like it did better than these did, and it still has some life to it because that Tron franchise existed before and is now
but when it came
continuing
out,
on.
no one watched it. Like, that one bombed at the box office.
Yeah.
It got such a big thing later on because people came back to it and the music. But also, I rewatched Tron Legacy, and I'm like, this movie's like 3 hours, and the first hour we don't see Jeff Bridges until like an hour and a half into the movie. The
Yeah.
scene where he finally sees his dad and they make a plan to get out or whatever, that's an hour and a half into the movie. The first hour and a half is him on a light cycle, doing a laser disc battle, going to a
Yeah.
bar or whatever. Like, nothing really happens in that movie. That movie's all spectacle.
Well, I will definitely recuse myself from that one again because I am a fan of the original, but I would never recommend the original because it doesn't hold up. But then the second one I thought did a better job of doing that, but it was an existing IP, whereas these other things,
Yeah.
I mean, again, I guess you could call Tomorrowland an IP, The Lone Ranger an IP, and all that, but it
John
doesn't.
Carter of Mars was
Those
a
movies,
comic or a book or
yeah,
whatever.
exactly. But they just don't work. And I think a lot of it has to do with nobody went to see it because they didn't know what they were seeing. It wasn't packaged correctly. And then even when you go to see it, there's still things that are missing. And it's on paper, it should be great. Like the John Carter, Andrew Stanton directs that one. He had terrific success with Pixar. The source material is strong. Taylor Kitsch is a good-looking guy, like with his shirt off
Yep.
most of the movie. So I feel like there's all of these pieces added up. Uh, Willem Dafoe. I mean, all of those things, and yet it didn't work. And so I think that's the same with this. But I think that to me, I can trace to the things we talked about. It took too long to get there, and then when you get there, they didn't have they got lazy and therefore you didn't want to go back to it again and again. So I would say to people, if you haven't seen it and you want to go watch it. It's not horrible. I just don't think it's what it could have been.
I would say, in terms of all those things, there's just no main character that I like. or relate to. Like in Tron Legacy, the only thing I really know about Sam is that his dad vanished and he's a little bit sad now.
Right.
And then Cillian Murphy wants to do evil things with the company, and he wants to give the power to the people or something. But that's about it. And then he also takes his shirt off for no reason. But I don't really know that much about him. I don't get what he's good at. Hacking, like, and Casey, like, she's like, I know how stuff works. And she's like a child genius, and she can point out stars and know the constellations or whatever. But I don't really care about her. She likes her dad, and that's about it. I mean, okay, what's a good example?
She's the one, but she's the one you're supposed to like, is Casey, because if you think about it from Frank's standpoint,
Oh, he's
we
grumpy
meet
old man
two
the whole
different,
time.
but we also meet two different Franks. We were relating to the kid first, and then we're relating to the George Clooney, and I mean, it splits my attention as opposed to someone I'm there the whole journey with, who would be Casey. But Casey's got
Yeah.
a very similar thing to Sam in the fact that she's trying to sabotage the company that is her dad's company, that is trying to take out the platform.
Let me,
And
I was thinking, who's a character I do care about? And I'm just going to go ahead
in
and
this
say,
movie,
in general, like how
oh,
a movie where a character gets introduced and I go, I like that character. And let me just go back to the Future for a second. Marty McFly, he's a bit of like a loose cannon character. He's actually, no, he's only late for school because of Doc Brown. He hangs out with Doc Brown. He helps him as like a lab assistant. He's pretty good at playing music. His band is good, and everyone just seems kind of like against him. His family kind of sucks. He wants to do more and be more of a person, but we just see like everything else around him is like shitty. And then we have Doc Brown. Doc Brown really cares about Marty, and then Doc Brown gets fucking murdered by some Libyans, and suddenly, like, this person that he looks up to, we know that Marty cares about Doc. This person just got gunned down in front of him, and now he's back in time and he has a chance to help save him, and then also like see what his family was like and realize oh my god, my dad and my mom was hot, my dad was good at writing, I can I can kind of help everybody. And he seems like a good-natured kid. He does initially want to get out, but he's not like, oh man, I'm stuck here, this place sucks, I gotta put up with my dad and he's a loser. Like, he's not really like that. He's a pretty good-natured character, all in all. But then, like, here's how I would fix Casey. Her dad does work for NASA, but now her dad is sick. She has to take care of her dad. Her dad is not getting money from NASA because NASA no longer has jobs for them. And she feels betrayed by NASA. This thing that was supposed to be a little exploration, whatever. She could be like, my dad is a genius and you're not even going to help him. Now she has to take care of her brother. Now she has to, maybe she has a job that she has to go and work at constantly that she hates because she needs to support her dad. Suddenly, here comes this opportunity for a better life, a better way. Maybe she can help her dad. Because there's no reason that she's doing anything now except I'm an optimist. And I want why can't we make the world better? Like, I know it's a trope of like dead parent or sick dying parent, but it really does, it's an easy way to get you to care about a character. Because
you need a character who is going to rise above.
Yeah. We can identify if one of our family members was sick and or dying, we would do anything for them. And so it makes us empathize with her because she wants to do the same thing. Otherwise, now she's just like, I'm very smart at things. And I challenge my teachers in school.
She had an easy hero's journey.
She doesn't do anything at the end. What does she do? She can't even throw the thing to blow up the monitor properly. George Clooney does that. What does she do by the end of the movie except encourage Frank?
But she's the one that theoretically gives him hope, yes, but theoretically figures out that the monitor is the problem. She is the one who figures out the monitor is the problem.
I feel like George Clooney could have done that if he had took 12 seconds to figure it out.
You ever watch a TV show called The Big Bang? You ever watch a TV show called The Big Bang Theory?
Absolutely not. But
Most
go on.
most people hate it, just in practice, that it's, nerddom and all that kind of stuff, and maybe misrepresenting it. I don't know why. I liked it. It was fine. But in that one, there's an episode where, and I brought this up on other shows, where Sheldon is sitting there making his girlfriend watch his favorite movie, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and they finish it, and he goes, "What did you think?" And she goes, "It's great, except for the obvious plot hole."
Oh yeah,
And he goes,
Indy
"What?"
doesn't
And
do
she
anything.
says that Indy doesn't affect the outcome in any way, shape, or form, because the Germans would have found the Ark anyway, opened it anyway, and died anyway. So he doesn't affect
Marion
it at
though,
all.
I do want to. I've heard that theory, and I just want to say Marion would have probably gotten killed by the Germans, and if she didn't get killed, she would have been taken to the Ark, and then her head would have also exploded because she wouldn't have known to close her eyes and look away. But yes, you're correct. In every movie, what was I just watching where that happened? Journey to the Center of the Earth. There's some evil villain in that who's like making them figure out how to get there, and then just follows them. And then he falls down a hole all on his own. They don't even do anything. He would have fallen down that hole regardless, or got
Yeah.
eaten by a lizard. It was this. I was like, it's the Indiana Jones thing where he's just leading the villain to the thing, and then the villain dies on their own devices. But yeah, I agree. It's yeah. Would George
Yeah.
Clooney have gone? No. Would the thing have blown up? I guess she is the one. Athena gives Casey hope, and Casey uses that hope to go to George Clooney and want to get to Tomorrowland, and all that stuff. I just don't really think that other than that she's really done anything. Or they should have made a point about that in the movie. She's like, "You said I was special. What did you mean?" And he's like, "You got me here, didn't you?"
Hmm.
Luca.
Yeah.
Remember the end of Luca? You know the Pixar movie Luca? At the end, he's
Hmm.
like, "I'm a better person now because you got me off of that island that I was on.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be fine now because you did that." And it's like, okay, there's a solid thing. This character says, "You did this for me, and look how much you've changed the world because of this." It's that same thing, but they just don't do that because at the end of the movie, they're just like, "Well, the monitor's blown up. Now what do we do?" And they're like, "I guess we got to get the portal working and then just give more people hope."
Yeah. I don't know, man.
You're right. What do we take
Maybe
away
there,
from this movie?
maybe there's a reason you can't find it easily. That's the problem. Maybe there's a reason that you have to go dig it up somewhere, is because it's like, you're supposed to just forget about that it ever happened. But there are lists where you look at movies that were inspired by Disney attractions and things, and this is on that list, and I feel like it
No,
it
that's not.
shouldn't be. It
This
shouldn't be.
isn't based on Tomorrowland. I would say the RPG episode that I did set in Tomorrowland at the park was a better Tomorrowland than the thing that happened. I think
Let's
the
write
thing
it.
that Adam Handley and I came up with for that RPG was a better than whatever this movie was supposed to be a representation of.
I'm down.
Also, if
Let's
they
do
really
it.
thought, let's make a movie about the concept of Walt Disney's Tomorrowland, that's a crumbling image in the first place. Maybe fix the park first before you make a movie about it.
The sequel was going to be called Frontierland.
That's a
No,
lie.
it wasn't. It wasn't. I know. It wasn't. It wasn't. We could just go around the park and do whatever.
I guess now let's just we haven't talked about stuff in a while. Should we just go on a quick recap of things that have come out recently and give our quick thoughts about that?
Sure.
What did you think about Haunted Mansion? Because I hated it horrendously.
I didn't hate it. I didn't hate it. I didn't hate the original. When I say the original, I mean the Eddie Murphy one. I didn't hate that one.
Yes.
A lot of people go back to the idea that the original Haunted Mansion was divided into two parts, right? There's the Mark part and the Claude part, and or the Rolly Crump part, and they divide it up. And when you go through it, it's scary and then it's funny, and so that's kind of the thing you have to do when you're making a Haunted Mansion movie. I I didn't hate it. I think it gave more fan service than the first one did.
Yeah.
It was more true to that, with the fact that they went to the other Haunted Mansion which was like the
That was
Florida
funny.
version when the Dan Levy. I love Dan Levy. I feel like they underused him in this. I thought when they said he was going to be in it, it was going to be a bigger deal than it was. So I don't know. And I thought Lakeith Stanfield did a good job. I thought that Rosario Dawson did a good job. Tiffany Haddish was okay. Owen Wilson is
I
always
was
Owen
pleasantly
Wilson.
surprised by Tiffany Haddish, honestly, in that movie. Owen Wilson was just Owen Wilson. He's on contract because of Loki, so they're like, let's put Owen Wilson in this movie. Uh, I
Yeah, I mean, I didn't hate it. I did not hate it. It sounds like you did, but I didn't hate it. Did
I
you see?
I got some good laughs out of it. There was some funny stuff. I liked Danny DeVito being taken over by what's his name, and they're instantly like, "Yeah, you're not Danny DeVito." That was funny because I've always liked that in movies. I liked the stretching room scene. That was the most fun scene of the movie. But they never established that was the stretching room. They didn't even show the. You only ever saw the bottom of the portraits on the wall. We didn't get a nice little. This movie felt like it was made during COVID and everyone was on green screens and filmed separately. I never got the feeling that all of these actors were on the same set. And I also didn't feel like they actually built a set. Remember in the Eddie Murphy when they walk in and there's this grand entrance hall? We never get that in this movie. The entrance of this movie is just a big hallway, and it's a bunch of hallways. There's no like big ballroom or anything like that. We never really got a cool sweeping shot of the house or like a cool single camera take, Haunting of Hill House where it goes throughout the whole house or whatever. But yeah, I like that stretching room scene. That was okay. When I saw,
I still think that
and
Haunted
Jared,
Mansion hasn't gotten the movie it deserves.
which should be this. It should be this.
Right.
Would be the best Haunted Mansion movie, and it should only be an
I have
hour long,
yeah.
and it should be animated. Just adapt this into a movie. This has all the elements of the ride, but rearranged in a better order. You have the original concept that it's a retirement home for ghosts. We have a main character that we care about because his grandpa dies and he goes into the mansion trying to find his grandpa's ghost because he wants to see him one last time. Instant connection with the character. This kid is a nerd for this weird ghost house and he's been studying it for years, and he does the thing where he puts all his tools in a bag and he goes on a little kid adventure, and I'm like, that's the movie. That's all it needs to be. We don't need 14 characters made up of tropes.
Yep. Did you watch Once Upon a Studio?
Yeah, I did. Boy, that sure was a lot of references.
Shut up. I liked it. I liked it. I don't know. I saw it at Destination D23. I was there in Orlando. They showed it to us in there, and I was not expecting to see it, much less to see the whole thing, which is only like 8 minutes, so I don't know.
Yeah.
But I saw it and I was like, I love this. This is a perfect love letter to 100 years of Disney. I love it.
It is.
And
It is very nice.
And yeah, it is all references, but I mean, that's what it's designed to do, is to give fan service to 100 years of Disney, which is kind of what Wish did, but didn't do as effectively.
I mean, it was like that was all I was really gonna say. It's like I didn't like it. I didn't hate it. It is what it is. Would I watch it again? No, but it was fun to watch once and be like, oh, that was cute.
I've watched it 4 times. I'd watch it again. Because I think every time you find a little bit of something else in it with the work they put into it. But I love the history of bringing on the original animators. I love bringing in the existing voice characters, or bringing back some of the voices of people who had passed on. The little references in it are what make it. But I did enjoy it. So, what about Wish?
I didn't see it. I have zero interest in seeing it. Okay, so where do I begin? I don't care about princess movies. I don't care about fantasy princess movie musicals anymore. It does nothing for me. I just don't care. The music from the trailer just sounded the same as everything else. I don't even know that little kids are going to repeat these songs on repeat. I just yeah, I didn't get the sense that like love and everything went into it. Like when I remember when I saw the trailer for Tangled, I'm like, this looks interesting. They're taking a classic concept, flipping it on its head. Interesting dynamic between the characters, and it has some level of an art style to it. This movie, like when they showed the art style, I'm like, what? This is like 15 years too late. When did Paperman come out? That's when they should have made Wish, is right after you figured out that technology to do that. Did you watch Alice's Wonderland Bakery?
No. No.
The Alice in this is the great granddaughter of 1960s Disney's Alice.
That's cool.
So all the characters in Wonderland are also descendants of that. So all the characters you know and love from Alice in Wonderland from the 60s one, they are dead now. Except the Cheshire Cat. The Cheshire Cat is the same cat. And he is infinite, and he has watched Alice's come and go, and he has watched Kings and Queens of Wonderland be destroyed and new ones take their place. And this Cheshire Cat is immortal. And that's all I have to say on that. I watched one of the scenes and I'm like, this is the weirdest thing. They point to a portrait of Alice, original Alice, on the wall. They're like, your great grandmother came here. And I'm like, hang on. And then I needed to deep dive into all the characters. It was weird. Anyways. Sorry, okay. Did you like Wish?
I did. I went with my family. We were kind of split on it. It's, when it comes to Disney Plus, we'll watch it again. The Marvels is one that all four of us went and loved, and the internet tore up. And I noticed that when it dropped the other day on Disney Plus here, that a lot of people were going online and talking about how much they loved it, and then other people were like, "Hey, y'all were tearing up the Marvels before, and now you guys are on board." I think it was a fairly well done Marvel movie. So as opposed to, I wasn't a huge fan of Ant-Man and Wasp and Quantumania, and I definitely did not like Secret Invasion on Disney Plus.
Did you watch Strange World?
Yes.
I liked Strange World because it was very.
Here's the thing about Strange World.
Earth.
Yeah, here's the thing about Strange World that I think I've talked about before is that I feel like when a Disney movie has a musical soundtrack, it gets more traction / notoriety than one that doesn't. And so if you think about movies like Treasure Planet or Strange World or Raya that like people don't talk about as much, I think it's because when you leave Encanto, if you're humming Encanto, and I know you talked about it beforehand, you weren't a fan, but if you're like humming that song or you're thinking of that song or that song got to you, then you continue to listen to the soundtrack, then you go back and watch it again, and then you're talking about it with other people. I think that Strange World, without having the music, that hurts it, which again, I feel like that's with Disney movies. Like, think about the ones that stand out: Encanto, Moana, Frozen. The ones that have soundtracks. And it's hard to remember one that didn't have a soundtrack that broke free. Wreck-It Ralph. Maybe
I'll agree with you because Turning Red is my favorite movie, and I think a small part of that is the music.
All
the Four Town songs. But also just the score itself. Like, I remember hearing some of the music in the background and being like, oh, this slaps. And I listen to some of the songs regularly. They're fun. Strange World, you're right. It's missing like an end credits song, or even just like a song that the main guy could be listening to that his friends like. Yeah, you're right. It was missing that little thing.
When we talk about like Treasure Planet or Atlantis, which you and I went back to, or Strange World or Raya, these are all movies that don't have like breakout songs. Even you had the Owl City song, I think, in Wreck-It Ralph, so at least there's a song in that one, or the Sugar Rush
had a theme song. Yeah.
Sugar Rush. But no, SUGAR. anyway,
Jumping to
the,
racing
the
car.
the movies that don't have it don't seem to do well. That said, the Pixar movies that don't most Pixar movies don't have a musical element to them, and yet we seem to like those. You mentioned Wall-E, Ratatouille. Ratatouille has a killer soundtrack, like a score, but it's not songs. And
There's the
so
one
for
song
some
at the
reason,
end, which is okay. I don't listen to that, but I listen to, like, honestly, Wally got me with the whatchamacallit, the
Hello Dolly.
Hello Dolly music, yeah. Because then from
Yeah.
that, I actually found Hello Dolly and watched it. I'm like, this movie's amazing.
Yeah, that's my own theory about that is that you don't stick with those movies as much. They don't carry with you, and I think that the music is what sort of makes those movies more popular, more memorable. I mean, think about again, 101 Dalmatians. It kind of has music because Roger is writing the whole like we'll have a Dalmatian
Yeah,
plantation. 101 Dalmatians has almost no representation in the parks. Same thing with like I don't know. I just look at it as I think that there's something in there that doesn't work without the songs as a Disney movie, but I could be wrong.
I'll just say that
But
Strange
again, Strange,
Worlds did
I
have.
enjoyed it.
I love the aesthetic, the whole Journey to the Center of the Earth thing, and the adventure thing. And he had like this card, like Catan type board game, and I'm like, they should have made that. They should have made a print and play version of that. And I would have tried playing it because I love the look of that, and I love having fake board game type things. I have an escape game, like an escape room in a box, that's a board game, but they made the board game actually playable, and now it sits on my shelf. And I'm like, I beat the escape game, but this is a real freaking board game. I think
Yeah.
they did a good job with the gay character. He literally flirts with a boy, and at the end, he kisses him on the cheek, and they all have names. That, like, honestly, it's the least they could do, but at least they did it. Unlike Jungle Cruise, for example.
Oh, I know
But
you were mad
anyways,
about Jungle Cruise.
oh, I
A lot of
hated
people were
Jungle
mad
Cruise.
about Finding Dory too, because Finding Dory they made such a big deal about the same-sex couple that was at the aquarium, and it's just like they just kind of fly by them.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I was about to say, where's there a gay couple in Finding Dory? And you're like, oh, yeah, just two
Yeah.
moms. And I'm like, not going to have been any
Yeah.
two moms.
Right. Exactly.
That's like showing the Golden Girls and somebody being like, oh, are they all lesbians? Like, that's not. Can't.
Wait, they weren't? I'm just kidding. Sorry.
Oh, we've been talking for 2 hours about movies.
Yes, sir.
Obviously, we don't have a time restriction, but I think we've both exhausted everything we could possibly say. What are we gonna watch next time? What's a movie that is not streaming on Disney Plus that, or even just anything that's not streamingly available that we could find?
Would you
Throw it out there.
Somebody told me in Discord they wanted like Step Brothers, Wedding Crashers, one of those kind of comedy movies to talk
Oh
about.
God.
But yeah, I know. But let's go back to like there's a ton of stuff like I said that's not on Disney Plus. But to me, The Lone Ranger would be one that I'd want to talk about.
I could rewatch that. I remember it being very middling until the end, which was amazing.
Yeah.
I remember the final
Well,
scene being honestly kind of spectacular, even though a lot of it is just 3D animated. I remember being like, I love this. I want the scene to keep going. Sure.
the whole
I hate
train scene
Westerns. We'll
with
find
like
it.
the I have a lot of things to say about westerns because my dad loved westerns, but I feel like there's a pattern to westerns that loses you in the middle. Like almost every western loses you in the middle. My favorite western is a movie called Silverado. And
That sounds familiar.
and that one is sort of the same thing, but at least it has a little bit of a better pace. But speaking of things that aren't on Disney Plus and westerns, Tombstone was another one with Val Kilmer.
Oh, I just heard about that. Oh, is that also? I got bad news for you. Both of these movies are on Disney Plus in Canada.
Oh, are they?
Yes.
Let me double check here because I don't think I know Lone Ranger's not, but I'm pretty sure Tombstone is not because I think I went and looked for it.
I've got Tombstone from 1993.
Oh no, Tombstone is on here. Withdrawn. Lone Ranger.
The Story of Robin Hood. You got that? 1952. That looks
Lone Ranger's not on here.
okay. Let's do Lone Ranger, sure.
Okay, yeah. There's a lot of problematic things we could talk about. It'll be great. Let's do
All
it.
right. Rob, well, do you have anything you want to plug? Where should people go to follow you, etc.?
I mean, basically I have a YouTube channel where I dump a lot of videos from things that I go and do, and it's just YouTube. It's just Rob Whiteside, like YouTube/Rob Whiteside. And I do things like on there that like are Disney attractions that I've done, or like a Buc-ee's that I went into, or Disney on Ice, or concerts I've been to, like My Chemical Romance and things like that. So just a bunch of just garbage that I put on there. But it's it's a place where I feel like I also do like an unboxing every now and then. So I did unboxing of the Vinylmation. Here's May.
Adorable.
Maylin. There you go.
And I'll carefully word this. You have a show called Deep in the Plus that people can go look up somewhere if they want to. And maybe it has an amazing open animation that somebody animated for you. Do you still use it?
It's still being used.
Yay!
Still being used. With the same creator in the video. So
oh my god, you're right. I'm still all the cool things. That's amazing. I live on somehow. Well, go check that out. I was on a bunch of those. You could watch the old ones. Go watch us talk about Fuzzbucket. It's honestly the worst movie I've ever seen, but probably the most fun thing that we had to review because I just you let me just go off. Right, we'll be back.
You were on 16 of them, by the way. 16.
Yeah, I remember you showed a spreadsheet. I'm like, I was on a lot of these, wasn't I?
Yes.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's it.
Man,
Please go check out screenholetv.com. That is where you can find our Twitch, links to our YouTube, wherever we post stuff. Go visit the Discord. That's about it. Let's say our common sign-off phrase. Take it out, Rob. I don't know. Give us a sign-off phrase.
Good Lord and butter.
Good Lord and butter?
Good Lord and butter. We'll see you next time.
I'll try this one out. See you nowhere. Bye, everybody.
Our common phrase.